Now, something's going to happen next week. I'm trying to think of what it is.
Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Ryan O'Neill.
Dr. Bob.
There's only so much help I can give you, Brian.
You say that again. All right, the big election, Tuesday, November 6th.
Right.
Did you have any thoughts on the effects of the caravan, Trump's press conference from Thursday afternoon?
Well, we moved from the Reed-Matrano race to the thousands of Hondurans and such coming up through Mexico. I did not hear Trump's press conference yesterday, but I have seen him say that he's going to move troops to the border, and these people are not going to be allowed in, and I don't think he has any choice on that. I mean, that's just...
The only part where he got tough, really, was when he said, if they throw rocks, I've told the soldiers, the U.S. soldiers, if they throw rocks at you, think of that as like a bullet.
Yeah, well, that's kind of stupid, but that's not... And it hasn't been situations where the president has said things that he probably shouldn't have said. But the point is, Mattis and the guys running these troops... I have a lot of confidence in them, and I think they have all kinds of ways of keeping crowds under control. And it just, I guess there are all kinds of questions involved here. But the basic point is Trump has to insist that these guys, they're either going to end up living in tents the rest of their life or end up going back to Honduras or wherever they're from. I don't know. But we can't open borders. That would be a huge, huge mistake. And I think my understanding is the race in Arizona, the Republican for the Senate is moving ahead now. And I think this caravan sort of thing is the sort of thing that gets people in Arizona obviously concerned about it. So we'll just have to see how that develops, and I don't think they're going to get to the border before Election Day, but I'm not sure about that.
Dr. Heineman, Drudge, like I said, seems to be leaning more to the left these days. He is quoting the Cook Report as saying that the Dems will gain 30 to 40 seats. I think he's talking about the House.
Right, the House, absolutely. Yeah, well, a lot of those races are very close, and the fact that they're tightening up, I think, is a plus for the Republicans. And the problem with that prediction is that all these races that are up in the air right now, and I think there are 30 or 34 open seats, something like that. Some of those are very tight races, and the Democrats are going to have to run the whole panoply of tight races to end up with close to 30 gains. And so my thought is that's going to be pretty unlikely that they're going to be able to do that. And I think there are a couple of factors that come into play there. One, of course, they're concerned about suburban, well-educated women who are going to pour out there and vote against Republicans. The problem with that is that those people didn't vote for Trump to start with. So now that somehow suddenly they're going to make a difference, they're only going to make a difference if they turn out in a much larger force than the Republican base. And so I think that's questionable. But the other factor involved there is the role of Trump. And Trump is clearly, the energy that guy has is just unbelievable. He's clearly trying to nationalize this election in the sense it's going to be a referendum on him. And he's visiting, I think it's 6 different states here before the election yet. And a number of these states have early voting so that he can hold a rally and tell his supporters to go right out and vote right now. Of course, a lot of them have already voted anyway. But I must say the rallies that Trump is holding, they retain a tremendous amount of enthusiasm, and they look to me like they're pretty well crowded. So I think the Trump base is ready to go here, and the Cook report may be a little off in terms of their prediction there. Now, the other side of it is I think the chances of it being a long night are very good, and I think a number of these races could go on, well, absentee ballots could go on for a week, 10 days in terms of being too close to call. So you're going to have, I think you're looking at maybe a 4 or 5 seat margin one way or another. But we'll just have to see. The idea that you're going to have a blue wave here, I think you don't hear too many people talking about the blue wave anymore, which again is an indication that the Republicans are building some momentum out there and tightening things up. Now, in the Senate, on the other hand, nobody that I know of is suggesting that the Democrats are going to regain control of the Senate. The best that they can hope for is just to hold on to what they have. But there are a number of seats out there where the Republicans are pushing hard. One is in Florida, one is in New Jersey, one is in Montana, North Dakota, Missouri. All those seats are held by Democrats, or were held by Democrats, and Republicans are pushing very hard in those seats. So if they gain, say, out of the 5 or 6, if they gain 3 or 4, Indiana's another one. If they gain 3 or 4, that's going to up their margin. At this point, I don't really see any Republican seats outside of maybe Tennessee, which seems to be pretty tight right now. But most of the races show the Republicans gaining momentum in the state. I don't know of any races, frankly, and there may be some out there, don't get me wrong, where the Democrats are suddenly moving all of a sudden either close it up or widen their margins. And there's an interesting race in Michigan, too, where Stefanik, that's not quite right, Stabenow, I think her name is, longtime Republican or Democrat senator there. Everybody figured that was a safe seat, and it may still be, I don't know. But the Republicans are running an African American, and he has halved the margin in the last 2 or 3 weeks up there. So there's definitely something going on there, where the Republicans are beginning to gain some momentum there. So there are these out of the way seats that aren't really counted on originally, and all of a sudden they pop up. And the one to watch is Menendez. Now, Menendez in New Jersey may hang on by fingertips. I don't know. But clearly it's right now 1 or 2 point margin there in New Jersey. So the Democrats are pouring huge amounts of money in there, and everybody's in there trying to hang on to the Menendez seat. I think for our listeners' edification, watching some of these seats in New York and watching the Menendez seat in New Jersey give you kind of an early sense of how strong the Republican base is going to hold on. And so you've got the Reed race, you've got the Katko race, who's out of the Syracuse area, and you have the Collins race from the Buffalo area. All those 8 races, you watch them pretty closely. Then you've got 10A, Stefanik, 2 ladies running, and Faso, who running against a guy by the name of Delgado. And if Faso and the 2 women win, or let's say it goes 2 out of the 3 win, that's a pretty good sign that the Republican base is still holding pretty well. On the other hand, the state Senate in New York, I don't know, boy, that's going to be very tough to hold that.
I want to talk about that after the break, but before we go to the break, I had a question for you about Maxine Waters.
Oh, yes.
Bloomberg and Drudge are both predicting that if the Democrats take the House of Representatives in Washington, that Maxine Waters will get the House Financial Services Committee chair spot, and that she'll go after anything connected to Donald Trump.
Right. No, I think that's got to be one thing that voters have to consider at this point. They're going to have a House of Representatives. If the Democrats win, you're going to have a House of Representatives, which is going to be pretty much chaos. And they're going to spend all their time trying to harass and hassle Trump and his administration. It's just going to be very, very ugly. And I think the voters aren't stupid. I mean, I don't want to say that's a universal description, but they're generally pretty bright. And I think a lot of them are going to say to themselves, hold it, we don't need Pelosi and Waters and this guy from Long Island who said that the first thing he's going to do is try to move toward impeachment of Trump. And there's another guy on the Intelligence Committee. I mean,
Adam Schiff. The Drudge is saying Adam Schiff will go for the Intelligence
It's just going to be
Committee
so
and go after Trump.
Ugly that even if you're a Democrat, it seems to me you've got to say, hold it, we got to get some changes here. So, but the country's survived these things before, and we'll just have to let the voters make their decision.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Dr. Bob. We're going to talk Albany when we get back.
And keeping your trust is a priority for all of us at Countryside Propane. That's why you'll always receive outstanding service from knowledgeable professionals with reliable installation and delivery, friendly customer support, and fair pricing you can always depend on. It's why our customers say it's so nice to finally find a propane company I can trust. Switch to Countryside Propane today. Lock in a low price and start saving hundreds right away. Visit countryside-propane.com and get started.
It's meteorologist Rob Carolyn time. How's the weekend looking, Rob?
It's looking okay, Brian. Saturday doesn't look that good, but Sunday is going to be the day to get out and enjoy. And I would definitely get outside and enjoy Sunday because we go right back into stormy weather early next week. The pattern's going to be very, very active. We'll be lucky to get 2 nice days in a row right through the middle part of the month. We certainly don't have 2 nice days in a row coming up right now. A lot of cloudiness out there. A few more showers, Brian. Low pressure is going to move from Buffalo on up towards the Adirondacks today. We're 55 to 60. Sunrise this morning was at 7:46. Sunset tonight at 6:02. Showers there in the forecast for tonight. New storm coming up from the south. That's going to pass through New England. Temperatures 35 to 40. Showers tomorrow. They start to become much more limited. We may see a few peaks of sunshine tomorrow afternoon. Breezy and cool, 45 to 50. Tomorrow night, partly cloudy, cold, 30 to 35. When you go to bed tomorrow night, don't forget to set your clock back an hour. We go back to standard time. Also, probably a good idea to check the batteries in the smoke detector at the same time. Then for Sunday, partial sun, 50 to 55. Rain returns to the area by the time we get into Monday, Brian.
Back with Dr. Bob.
Yes, well, I'd like to talk about Mr. Trump's discussion about citizenship there, too, somewhere, but we can talk about Albany a little bit.
If we can do Albany first, your thoughts.
Sure.
First of all, will the Republicans control the state Senate after
January?
January?
It's going to be very tough to do. So we'll just have to, maybe they can get, the one possibility is they can get some of these independent Democrats who are left to, again, coalition with them. And to give them a functional majority. And the reason for that might be that the independent Democrats might get some pretty good deals from allowing the Republicans to remain in, kind of in power. But from my point of view, it's a long shot, that's for sure.
Now, what's the big challenge facing the Senate Republicans for New York State? Is it that New York State is a Democrat state, doesn't like Trump, and is going after all Republicans? Is it that the individual races and the individual candidates themselves, with all politics being local, as some people say? Is it that Governor Cuomo has backed away because of Cynthia Nixon, has backed away from supporting the Senate Republicans and working with them? What's the
Well, I think there are
there?
a combination of things there, Brian. And the fact is, New York State is heavily Democrat. So in terms of putting together coalitions of Republicans who can hang on, it's tough. But the other side of it is that if you've got to have good candidates, whether it's as Mr. Noje used to say, elections are a question of choices. And if the Republicans can put up really good candidates in a lot of these areas, they've got a chance to hang on. But you're also right. I think Cuomo has put a lot more effort into being more liberal, more progressive, and so that's helped, I think, the Democrats as well. So it's just a tough time right now to run for the Senate, especially some of these open seats. And it's going to be a long shot.
Okay, you wanted to get back to some national issues.
Well, Mr. Trump has talked about the citizenship issues spelled out in the 14th Amendment. And he's, of course, getting a lot of flack some from constitutional scholars and other people, Paul Ryan, saying that by executive order, he could basically put an end to the citizenship conferred on the children of illegal aliens and the so-called, what do we call them, tourist citizens. And the point is that the 14th Amendment says pretty clearly, and of course this was not part of the original Constitution. 14th Amendment says pretty clearly that, let me see, I have the old Constitution right here in front of me, Brian.
And this is passed in what, 1860s?
1868, yes, after the Civil War. And the whole idea was to insist that black people have a right, are citizens, because Dred Scott, 1857, Chief Justice Taney held that a black person could never be a citizen of the United States and had never been a citizen, which is totally false history. And Dred Scott is the only Supreme Court decision where a member of the court, Benjamin Curtis, resigned in protest. So it was a very, very volatile time. But the first section of the 14th Amendment, the first sentence says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. So what's happening is there are two aspects of this that bother Trump. The one bothers me a lot more than the other, but they're both bothersome because you get these illegal aliens coming into the country. They have a kid. According to the interpretation now, that kid is a citizen automatically. And and that's the cost of a lot of these illegal aliens, is now you have to provide that kid with all kinds of the same sorts of things that full-blown citizens would have, and their parents are then hooked into it too. So it's very costly, especially to California, Texas, Arizona, places like that. But the other thing that's happening is that Asians and other non-Americans are buying passes. I don't know, it's not immigration, but they come over here as tourists. Agencies set them up, come over here as tourists. They spend several weeks here. They're pregnant when they come, and they have the kid here. Now that's basically birthright citizenship. Their kid now is an American citizen. And then they go back to the other country they came from, and now they've got a kid who has the rights of an American citizen. So they're kind of just buying access to American citizenship. And that's outrageous. And the point is, the liberals get excited about the kids of the illegal aliens, the poor little kids. And all right, I'll give you that. But these people, birthright citizenship for these people, they're wealthy. They can afford to come over here and spend 3 or 4 weeks, 3 or 4 months, pay an agency to bring them over or whatever, have the kid here, and then they go back to where they came from. And the idea is that it really does advantage the wealthy. So Trump's point is this whole idea of birthright citizenship. He has a right by executive order, basically, to put an end to it. And there is a question there, I think, in the Constitution as it's written, because it says all persons born or naturalized, all right, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Now, why would you put subject to the jurisdiction of the United States in there once you've already got persons born or naturalized? So there must be an element of something else there that has to come into play before you're automatically a citizen. Because there's a whole area of statutory and constitutional interpretation which says that the legislators do not repeat themselves. So if you say something in one paragraph, well, the example, and I don't know how much time we have, but the example is the Mann Act of 1910, which prohibited the interstate transportation of women for purpose of prostitution, debauchery, or other immoral purposes. And the point is, all right, prostitution, debauchery, what's that other immoral purposes mean? Clearly Congress can't repeat itself, so it must be something else. And a lot of guys went to prison because judges and prosecutors came up with all kinds of interpretations of what other immoral purposes were. Now that was finally amended in 1986 to say other immoral purposes that are a crime in the jurisdiction in which they're committed, so that they finally got away from that. But the point in the Constitution, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, what does that mean? Does it mean, for example, people have diplomatic immunity, diplomats and such to the United Nations? Are they subject to the jurisdiction of the United States? Probably not. So are their kids automatically citizens? I don't know. But the point of this is, Trump's, by arguing that you can go with executive order to do away with the birthright citizenship, I don't think that's going to go. I mean, he can do that, but all he's doing is stimulating the conversation. Obviously, it'll be challenged in court, and we'll see where that stands. But he is forcing a conversation on that, and I think it's a worthy thing to do. Even though, people are saying, well, no, he's totally wrong. I don't think so.
There is a condescending attitude towards this guy, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. But you look at what he's done, it's just crazy. I mean, and those people in those rallies, they got the signs up there, promises kept and things of that sort. I think he can certainly stand by it.
Dr. Bob, I'm going to make 3 candidate predictions.
You are?
Right now.
Oh.
Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, Assemblyman Joe Gilio, and State Senator Kathy Young will all win re-election.
You really stick your neck out quite a ways there, don't you?
Considering that they're unopposed.
Yes. Yes. Well, and as far as I'm concerned, that's a good thing. So.
Thanks, Doc.
Quite all right.
I'll see you next week. We'll have lots to talk about.
Well, let's hope so.